Hey, it's Azriel Lawless, and you have once again taken the elevator straight into Vella. And we're here on a Lawless interview, and this is Mr. Zack Lester. He is an author out on Kindle Vella, as are all my guests, as you know, unless they're marketing somebody for Kindle Vella. There's something to do with Kindle Vella. But this is Zack, and he writes a horror flow out there. I think right now the one that you've got out there is a short story compilation, right?
It is. Yes, it is. Whispered
Every
Screams.
episode is its own ensconced story.
Yes, yeah. Now, I wanted to kind of weave a little bit of a thread in there that maybe the reader might think, hey, are some of these connected? So, but that's for the reader. Let's let them decide, have some fun with it.
Yeah, let them decide if it's connected or not. But I'm not letting you get away with this. We're not going to start early. We're not going to the easy stuff. I want to talk to you. I'm going to ask you the first question I ask everybody. And what is that? When did you get started writing?
When did I get started? Well, storytelling has always been kind of a thing for me. I love storytelling. I remember being probably 8, 9, 10 years old, and I've got an older brother. We would we would camp out in the back porch. We'd put a sheet over a picnic table, and we'd tell ghost stories. That was always like there was this stupid story that I used to tell about the little gold people on top of trophies coming to life and killing people. I mean, it was stupid who wouldn't be afraid of waking up to see a little like a gold bowling man, naked gold bowling man just hanging out, coming to get you. And so, but it was silly and that stuff.
That's pretty awesome. I like that. I like that a lot.
Maybe I'll pick that back up one of these days and put it in Whispered Screams. I don't know. But from there, I always
wake up and have them like beating you over the head with a little baseball bat or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Like stuff up your nose.
Yeah, like the ones that have little wings flapping around all over the place.
Oh, like you wake up, Lord.
And none of them are wearing clothes and a little golf club and like a little golf hat. I'm coming to get you. I'm out there.
Okay. All right. So this started early, this storytelling tradition, oral storytelling tradition. So little Zack, he's in school. Does little Zack, enjoy his English classes or, what?
Little Zack enjoyed recess and lunch and PE. Little Zack enjoyed being some goofy kid. I used to have these sleepovers with my friends. It'd be these group of little boys, and at some point in the night, I would always tell these ghost stories. And my goal was, I wanted the allies. I was a terrible friend growing up. It's awful, but my idea is how many allies these freaked out kids. Just how many allies I could get. So I love that stuff. I love goofing off and playing, running around the playground, stuff like that. So school was something you had to do. It was more about, getting put in the timeout chair because I was talking to my friends all the time. So I had my own special timeout chair just for me because the teacher needed to, because I was there so often. So that kind of stuff, just, goofing around in school and then that progressed to high school and when I started college and I started kind of writing some poetry and things like that, just trying to get my ideas down. A lot of kind of these thoughts that I had, and they're kind of darker thoughts, and just trying to kind of get out all the gunk you have when you're
in college at this point. Yeah.
Right. So I was in college doing that stuff. I got my degree in psychology, which there's questions there by itself. From there, I got my master's degree in mental health counseling. Again, interesting things. But at one point, and I would say probably around 2013, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to go on a reading binge. You know, I'd always kind of enjoyed reading, but I'm going to like really dig into some of these. So I started reading like Patrick Ness and The Hunger Games and Maze Runner and Ender's Game and Hugh Howey, the king of self-publishing. Just so I started like reading all these different things, and while I was reading it, Stephen King, of course. So as I'm reading, I start getting these different ideas for different like stories, bits and pieces here and there, and I was looking for a new series to read, and I came across two self-published authors, Terry Shyatt and Sean Inman. And I think Sean Inman's probably up in your neck of the woods over in state of Washington. He's self-published author up there. So those two guys, I read their stuff, and I really liked what I'd read, and then when you're reading people's stuff, you always like, okay, well, let me go check out Facebook and see what all they got going on. And those were, because they were two self-published authors, they were very active and engaged in their community to a point that I hadn't seen up to that point. So I started talking to them originally just about their stories, how they came up with their ideas, and things I loved about their stories. And then throughout the time, as time passed, I started talking about, hey, I have these ideas. I thought maybe I might like to write them down and do stuff like that. And bless their hearts, they were so encouraging, and they said, yeah, do it. It's so silly. One of the very first things I ever sat down to really write was actually a fan fiction in one of Terry Shyatt's worlds of the Game is Life series that he has. And I sent it to him. I was complete dummy. I sent it to him. Bless his heart. He was so sweet. He was so supportive. Like, yeah, it was nice. Thank you for doing that. But it was, oh man, what a dork that I was. This is ridiculous. But yeah, so they were so encouraging. Yeah, you should really think about doing it. And they introduced me to a website called Indies Unlimited. And there was these indie authors and trying to self-publish. And one of the things they did was every week they held a flash fiction contest. So they posted a picture and they wrote like the first paragraph of the story. And then you could submit your story. You could carry it on and submit your story. 500 words was the max. You couldn't go past that. So these short, quick snippets. And I started doing it. And I got some good feedback and response. And I loved the idea of just these like, rapid fire, one-off, just these short things where, anybody could read very quickly.
Yeah.
So I started really getting into that. And then my my obsession of reading had kind of started to shift towards writing. And so I started writing a lot. I wrote a lot of short stories, and I wrote some stories that I wanted to, I started some stories that I wanted to expand longer. And then I actually have one of my books that I actually had self-published. I actually have written the entire series out, 3 books in the series. So all this stuff was just kind of rapid fire in my mind. I have to keep up with my mind and get all these words out. And so the very first thing I did was I put a bunch of my short story collection together, and actually it was, I guess it was probably 2014, 2015, I think, is when I actually put the collection together, which turned out to be Voices in My Head. Cool. And it's very similar to Whispered Screams now. They're all like, dark, science fiction, horror, paranormal kind of stories. So that was my first taste of when I really sat down and started doing something with it. So I'm a rambler. We've hopped on the ramble train.
No, that's okay. No, you're still cogent, dude. As long as I can understand what the hell you're saying and you're even close to what we started with, we're good.
Excellent. I make no promises that will continue, but for this point, I'm in. Let's do it.
I can understand. I speak authentic frontier gibberish. All right. So let's see. 2014, 2015, we do Voices in My Head because you got to get that out. I'm so glad that you decided to do that instead of just, have a psychotic episode.
Oh, I've had some of those too. Don't let me pull you there. But
so 2015, that's been a minute. That's been a minute. That's 7 years. 7 years, my friend.
It
So
has.
what were you doing in the 7 years between Voices in My Head ball and Whispered Screams and Vella and the knowledge of Vella? So that's 7 years in there, other than being scared and Frady holing with your mask on, like the rest of the country and all of us did. The rest of the world. What am I saying? Country.
Yeah, watching the world burn outside of our windows, and it still is. But I just pull those blinds. Yeah, hey everybody, I used to know you from somewhere. You look familiar from here up.
Yeah.
It's really funny though that people that you meet and met during COVID, you only knew them from here.
Yeah.
That's it. And then you hear their voice, but you never see their mouth moving. And then the restrictions start to lessen, and suddenly all these people, you're seeing their full face, and sometimes it can be jarring. I am sure there are people that knew me from here that when this came out, I don't know you anymore. You're scaring the children. I'm sure.
I'm sure they were horrified. I'm sure. I'm positive that they were horrified. Now listen, this has been rough. Okay, this has been so rough trying to get,
Yeah, we can blur out the address. It's fine.
Yeah, I didn't have any idea how much I relied on seeing people's mouths move, because I don't read lips by any concept, here I did.
Yeah.
But you do depend on that way more than you think visually.
Right. And so, but back off the ramble train. Life gets in the way. Life kind of takes your plans and says, watch this. It's just the normal everyday stuff, that kind of gets in the way, and some things, throughout the life that happens, and it kind of veers you in a different direction. And so I kind of had put it away, the whole writing idea. I kind of set it off to the side, and it was something that was always kind of there. I would love to pick that up again one day. And the title Voices in My Head, like you had mentioned, that's kind of a literal how stories are for me. It's these voices saying, hey, write my story. You got to write my story. Did you write my story? Yeah. Hey, what about mine over here? So they were always there, but I kind of just said, well, life is life, and you put it on the back burner, and maybe I'll pick it up one day, maybe I won't.
Yeah.
But the entire time, my story for Last Life, the series that I had finally published, the first book anyway, it was, you spent how much time writing all 3 books of this series? You got to tell at least the first story. You got to at least put it out. And it was constant, like no matter what I was doing, in the back of my head, hey, Last Life is still here. So I actually, what I would call frustration, published the first book. Like, fine, I'll do it. Just get off my back about this whole thing. So I think that was December 2019. So I really hadn't done anything in writing or with my writing since I published Voices in My Head, and then finally said, fine, get off my back. I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was December 2019. Maybe it was December 2020. See, I don't even remember. Everything's so out of whack with everything. So I finally just published it and said, fine, I'm done. I've got it out. I'm over it. I'm maybe one day I'll pick it up again, but I'm done. I've given up. So that's kind of how my writing had progressed, and just kind of said, whatever, it's a thing in the past, went from there.
Okay, so Last Life comes out 2019. Then when did you hear about Vella?
So I heard about Vella in probably around December of last year. I had kind of heard some whispers of Vella over
Really?
the yeah,
December
yeah,
21.
yep, yeah. So I mean, when I say I put it on the back burner, my writing, I kind of put it all back there. I didn't really, I would get emails from Amazon every now and then, and talking about Kindle stuff, and I honestly I didn't even look at my author page or my author dashboard for Kindle's Unlimited. I don't even know. I just kind of just that was a thing that I did in the past, and kind of that stage was over, and maybe one day I'll pick it back up, maybe I won't. So I kind of just threw that all in the box somewhere, and never really and looked at it again. So I would get, you get the standard emails. Hey, this is the report of, this is how much money, bulk money that's going out for the bonus program. And also, so it wasn't until last December timeframe that I really started hearing Vella on a consistent drumbeat, if you will. And so I was like, well, that it's interesting. That sounds fun, and something maybe. So my next step was I kind of lurked. You hear about it in other interviews that you've done. And
so did you conceptually know about serial storytelling?
And you do. I did. I had heard, Wattpad's always been a thing out there for a while. There are other things, and I love the idea of these short stories that build to a bigger thing. You hit the marks, you leave them hanging, you want them more, so they click to the next thing. So I had heard about that stuff, and that's one of the things. So I am obsessed with the classic Twilight Zone, the TV show, and that's something that serial writing, it's set up like a TV show, whether it's a long running series that you get to that cliffhanger and it brings you back, and you hit those small cliffhangers, and then you get to the end of the season, it's like, what, I have to wait now for 6 months. Now it's like a year, but I love that, and the whole idea of, with the way the world works now, the fact that somebody can just sit down and have the time to really fully read a full novel or a full story, it just really doesn't happen that much anymore. We're all so busy, and life's crazy. So it's almost like a treat if you get to do that.
Yes. I just got to where I started just reading YA stuff.
Right.
Because you don't have to go so deep, and it's not literary, and it's not, super thought provoking. It's just like you say, it's a TV show. So, we don't have to get all that deep,
Right. It's fun. It's even though some dark topics are covered, it's light, and it's an escape. You get to go to these amazing worlds with these amazing characters for a short amount of time. And then you take that to like the serial writing platform of an even smaller time, 600 words, to read 600 words, and you can do that pretty quickly.
Oh yeah.
Now, to draw a reader in and keep a reader with you, wanting to go on to the next, that's an entirely different thing. But these short snippets of brings you in, and kind of holds you in this, this tension, the wad of tension, for a little while, and then let you go. I've always liked that stuff, and so as I was reading more about how the whole program worked and the platform worked, I also started reading some stories, and saw how people did it, and it was really interesting to me. I like that idea. And then, time progressed. I read more, did a little bit more research on how Vella even works, and then I decided, you know what, I have all of these short stories that I had written when I was obsessed with writing. Like, why not? They're just sitting in the box in the back of my mind somewhere collecting dust. Why not put them together and put them out there? So I had about 25 stories that I had already completed that I thought, yeah, let's give it a go. But I decided at that point, if I'm going to do this, I want to write some more. I want to kind of get back into it. So I had actually written 10 stories that I included with that. So this was probably around February timeframe where I decided, okay, let's give it a shot. They're just collecting dust back there. Let's go out there and do it. So I wrote some stories and polished up some of my old stories. You look back at them and you're like, what was I even thinking? So you polish them up and you put them out there. And honestly, what I thought, and I've told this to people before in the different Facebook groups, I thought I would put them out there. I would get a couple reads, maybe a thumbs up, and then I would just go away and that would be it. And then I could finally say, okay, well, I did this new thing, and then I can really go, okay, I'm done. It's over. That didn't quite happen.
Vella's not like that, is it?
No. And then people like you contact me and say, hey, I want to interview you for my chat. Like, what? What are you talking about? And I've been a fan of Hello Vella for a while now, just watching the videos. And then you contacted me, I want to interview you. It was like, okay.
Hey man,
I'm gonna sit like this and do this during the interview, but okay.
We're a young community. We want to talk to each other. We got to figure out what works.
Yeah, exactly.
So when did you first put up your horror anthology, and tell everybody what its name is?
Whispered Screams.
Yes.
Oh, your last video, you said you had to say it 3 times.
That's
Whispered
correct.
Screams, Whispered Screams, Whispered Screams. 3 times.
Go.
Okay. There you go. Perfect. I'm insane. So what I did was March 15th, I went publish now crazy, and I actually bulk published the first 15 stories. And then like 2 days later, I bulk published the rest.
How many more?
There
10.
At the time, there were 33 episodes. I have since updated 2 more. So now I'm sitting at 35. But in 2 days, I bulk published at the time, all 33 stories. So there was no schedule them out. It literally was, here you go, and let's see what happens. So
now I gotta ask this. I have not read Whispered Screams. Okay. Now, what I want to know is, so it's horror, right?
It's funny you say that. Yeah, yes, it's horror-ish. It's funny you say that, and having the feedback that I've gotten from, I never really actually thought of myself as a horror writer. And if you look at Whispered Screams,
Screams, not a horror writer.
And if you look at the cover of it, it screams horror writer.
It does. It does.
But if you look at the tags, horror is not a tag in my story. I didn't tag it as horror. Like, I had this conversation with another writer, and he was talking about how I don't deal well with scary stories and horror stories, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And I started thinking back. Okay, well, I started running through my stories because I write them, and it is what it is for me. And I started looking back at the stories that I'd written, not only for this, but for Voices in My Head. And I'm like, oh crap, I'm a horror writer. It's like it was never really it never really connected. In my mind, I always wrote Twisted. I wrote Twisted in the same way I never really considered The Twilight Zone to be a horror series.
I don't either. Okay. Now there were 2 series, okay, not just Twilight Zone, which is also one of my great personal favorites. I own the boxed limited edition set. It comes out every New Year's and
Oh, love it.
we play
Love
the Twilight Zone. So, but there was that one and there was Outer Limits.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
there was the Night Gallery. These
Yeah.
are all in a very similar vein.
Sure. Right.
Horror-ish.
Right. Right.
Nobody's
Right.
running through the woods, gonna be run down and killed, most likely.
Right.
But you
Right.
could easily like leave your house and go to the grocery store and enter another dimension.
Right. Right. And later, years later, you had like Tales from the Crypt, which was like specifically more horror.
Yes,
Decided.
it got more grody, more gory. That's
But-
the word I'm looking for.
But the thing about those shows, the horror of those shows was, what are people capable of? What are humans capable of? The other flip to that is you have episodes where normal, fine human beings are taken out of their world and put in these terrible situations. It's so you're right. It's not, there's a slasher in the woods. There's not this monster in the woods. It's this idea of who are we of people.
Right.
There was that one episode, and I can't remember what the name of it, the Twilight Zone, where you find out at the end it was aliens. Of course, it's always aliens, but they take this one small neighborhood and they start messing with the electricity and the lighting and things like that. And
Right.
then you'll watch these
And
people.
it turns them against each other.
Exactly. It's the horror of these people. They end up shooting the handyman. He went over like the next street over just to check and see if they have lights.
Right.
And at that point, they are so out of their minds with fear
Fear, yeah.
that he comes back and they shoot him. So it's that, to me, like, that was never really like horror. It was more of like this tension that was built.
Yeah, but doesn't it have, I mean, we suck at this. What do the real people call it? What do the pros call that stuff? Horror?
I would say it's probably a subclass of horror. You know, Rod Serling probably wouldn't call it horror. He would probably call it more on science fiction than horror.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but it's a very specific kind. So anyway, you do it, and I think it's great.
Thank
And
you.
since you tell stories, since you got started storytelling under a picnic table, under a sheep tent, why don't you think of one of your stories right now and tell me about it? Have we lost you? What happened? We have lost Zack Lester. Zack, you dropped off. Dude. Well, I'm going to sit here and wait for him. So I don't mind putting him on the spot because I bet he can tell a pretty good story. Oh, you're back. We were talking about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no. I'm embarrassed to say. So Last Life, the one book that I self-published, it's science fiction, and it's about like these virtual reality games and stuff like that. But I am very embarrassed to admit, technology is not my thing. So like for a second, I was like, oh, I accidentally hit a button somewhere and my computer's gonna blow up. So what were we talking about?
It might. So what I want you to do is tell me a story.
Tell you a story.
One, something out of Whispered Screams. I would like you to pretend like you've got the flashlight down here on your face and you're going to tell us the story.
Okay. Oh man, you didn't ask other people to do this.
Nope, not a soul.
Okay.
How many other anthology writers have I interviewed?
That's a good point. That's a good point. All right.
You tell stories that can be conveyed.
Oh, okay, so I will. Well, there's a story that I have that's called "Forget Me Not," and
Forget me not.
yeah, "Forget Me Not," like the flower, and actually that's a reference in the story. But this one is probably it doesn't fall on the side of horror, but it's this idea of it's told from the point of view of a kid in elementary school, and they live in this society where happiness is the most important thing. Sadness and pain and things like that, darkness, aren't really accepted in this world. So it's told the story from the point of view of the kid, and there's this it's kind of like a dystopian kind of thing, world that they live in, and there's this medication called overpass. So when something bad happens, they take the kids and basically all humans everywhere and give them this medication that causes them to forget these negative things. Well, in the story, the main character is one of these kids that actually is immune to overpass. It doesn't work on him. So everyone else forgets these terrible things that happen. He always remembers. And it's the struggle of him of he doesn't want to forget. He wants to remember and he wants to have these people live on. But he's also this idea of it's forced. He doesn't have a choice. And what if this next time he gets the overpass medication, what if it works? He's not going, when he gets injected, he does not know. Is he going to come out on the other side like everybody else? Or is he still going to remember? So at one point, something bad happens to one of his classmates. And it's this desk with this invisible student in it that is just, it's like a spotlight to him, but it's not to everybody else because they don't remember these things that happen. And so, but he remembers and he knows this girl was in this, this missing student. And so they pull all the kids out and they give him overpass and he wakes up and he still remembers. He's, thank goodness. So he has this whole, under his desk, I'm at the playground, basically this whole wall, it's the bottom half of a little playground set made of wood. And he's carved these initials of these other students that have just disappeared that nobody else remembers but him. So I have to remember these people. I have to, for them, to honor them, I have to remember. But what if tomorrow I don't? What if tomorrow I don't remember?
Oh my God. And
then what happens in the story is something happens to his teacher. His teacher is not there. I won't say what that is. But it's not happy. It's sad, but it is one of my first. I think it's my second episode, so people can read it for free if they like to. But something happens to his teacher, and there was some connection with his teacher. Like maybe she was immune to overpass as well, but he was always too afraid to talk to her about it because that's not allowed. The idea that somebody is immune to overpass is never brought up. And he's scared that, what if one day they find out that I'm immune? So he has all these different emotions going. And the end of the story, most of my stories there's not a lot of happy endings in my stories.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these cliffhangers, if you will, of just not knowing. So that's how the story progresses to the ending of he is given this overpass, and he does not know if he will remember his teacher once this is done. And on her desk. So at this point in this society, nature is kind of just wiped off. There's not a lot of it left. There's one tree in this so many block radius. But the teacher always had this picture of this flower on her desk that she loved to look at. And it was the forget-me-not flower. So that is kind of the end of the story. He's willing himself. I have to find a memory. I have to find a memory of this teacher that I can hang on to, that will maybe help me when I come out of the overpass to remember. And that was it. He could not. He at the end he kind of gets into this panic of, I got to remember that flower. What was that flower's name? What was that flower's name? Begging himself, come on, remember. And then right before it all goes to black, he remembers what the name of the flower was. Forget me not. Okay. And then who knows what happens after that.
Wow. I was wondering where you left it, whether you left it with him getting his injection or taking his pill or.
I did. He got his injection. And so the process of overpass is you get the injection and it knocks you out, basically. It pulls you down into this blackness. And when you wake up, maybe you remember, maybe you don't. So he got his injection. And as the darkness is pulling him down, come on, you've got to remember something. You've got to have something there that you can take with you into this place. And that was it. It was the flower, the forget-me-not flower, and that's it. And
that
then
sounds awesome.
And it's funny, and I claim there's a simulator programmer somewhere out there, but Earth Day was just recently. We just had Earth. Mm-hmm. I go into my work, and they have these boxes set up at the turnstile when you go clock in, and I'm walking. What is this? And I look at it. Okay, it's a box full of seeds, individually packaged seeds. And I get there and I look down, and I kid you not, the very first thing that's looking up at me is a pack of forget-me-not flowers. And I'm like, okay, what? Get out of here. Get out. Yeah, it's like, you got to be kidding me.
That is wild. Yeah. That's really good. I love it. It reminds me of a combo meal between a Black Mirror episode.
Right.
And Memento.
Oh, you got me with those two. I love those. Yeah.
Ooh, which is your favorite Black Mirror? I can tell you which mine is. Mine's the soldier one.
Oh, that is a good one.
Yeah, they've got them where they're because of a genetic anomaly in somebody, they start to see them as monsters.
As these creatures. Yeah, these creatures. And it's training to kill. You got to kill these creatures. Yeah. And then it's the realization, these are human beings. What am I doing?
Right.
I love it.
With just some small DNA flaw, right? Some small like genetic marker that they don't want in their society anymore. And not only that, but then you figure out at the end that, oh my God, it's not just to get them to kill people. They actually overlay a simulation on everything. And that's the scariest thing to me is these ideas that this could be reality. And so much of Black Mirror is it's like it's where science fiction becomes science fact. It's all these things. I mean, I think my favorite episode of Black Mirror, if I had to say, was the one that was built around social media. These ideas and you got to get the 5 stars. You got to get the 5 stars, and you're giving people these ratings, like not the stories. You're giving these people a rating, and you can see it, and you're like, oh man, I was rude to that waiter. I cannot get down. And your whole status of where you can move and where you can live and things you can go and the friends you can be with. It blows my mind. Well, that particular one, my friend, that one is based on fact. They're doing that in China.
It's so scary. That's the scary.
Not to that degree, not to that, but your travel visas and things like that,
Yeah, right.
If you're not a nice person, you can't fly.
Yeah, that's the real horror. I mean, not the clown from the sewer that's going to get up. Your paper boat has gone down in the sewer and it's going to get you. That's scary enough too. But it's the idea of what are humans capable of. That's the scary thing. What are we being fed? That's a whole other tangent for another thing.
Hey, I guess we could call it humanist horror,
I think that
societal
would be
horror.
perfect. I love that. That's I think we're onto something here.
We're on to something, man.
We might be on something. Maybe that's what it is.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant to say. Sorry. So now are you continuing on? What is your current writing stuff? Because I know that because we've got this wonderful Vella community out here, you're getting pumped up, you're getting some feedback. Are you still writing? Are you writing your short stories now?
Yes, yeah, and that's one of the things. The whole Kindle Vella thing has kind of like brought the passion back, to this. So I actually, and actually, it's kind of fed over into bringing Last Life back and things like that. But I actually have a couple projects that I'm working on. Several. So my schedule something doesn't really allow me to have like a consistent writing time, if you will.
Mhm.
So I have to write out ahead, and then my plan is to publish. When I get so far ahead, then I'll start scheduling publishing. I learned my lesson about publish now button, but so I've got a series that I'm currently working on that is going to be a long-term series. It's not a short story collection. It's actually a legit series. Once I get a good spot there, I'll start publishing that. I'm hoping maybe first couple weeks of May, maybe somewhere I'll start publishing that.
So this is going to be a book, but you're bringing it out in Vella.
Right. And then I have another project that I'm not at liberty to discuss right now because there may be somebody else involved in this project, a person that is very familiar to probably a lot of people that watch this. So I've been sworn to secrecy on that one. I'm at this point, I'm
not even going to make an educated guess, but I bet I could.
You absolutely, I guarantee you could.
Yeah. Yep. No. Let's move on. Yeah.
And so I've got that one. And then I've got a couple more that I had started writing a long time ago that I would love to dust off and build on those worlds. So I have a lot of projects in mind. And in the meantime, as I'm working through these, if I can, I'll add some more short stories to Whispered Screams. So there are constantly stories and flashing in my head, and it's hard for me to keep up sometimes. So there's constantly ideas turning around.
I have to say that I really love the short story mechanism. I've loved it since, it was my favorite thing to study in English in school.
Right.
Did I read War and Peace? No. Did I read? No. Did it ask if it's a book? No. I went and got the Cliff's Notes, right? But some of the really cool short stories, yes, I did read all of those.
Right. And was it Mark Twain that had the saying about, I was going to write you a short story, but I didn't have time, so I wrote you a long letter. Like the short story format is something so interesting to me. Is in a longer full-length story, you can have the slow burn, if you will, and you can build to something. But for short stories, you have to hit some things that, whatever that connection is, you have to connect with the reader. You have to make it interesting to where you have a very short window to make your mark, and you have to be able to hit those points. So and I probably butchered that quote, and somebody's probably going to leave. If you know the quote, put it in the comments of this video and call me stupid.
No, I think that's pretty close.
Something like that.
Because it's what he was trying to say is it's not that easy.
Right. It's not. You have to be very here. when you write short stories.
Yeah.
And and you're right. I've always loved that. You talked about the New Year's Eve marathon of the Twilight Zone. I
Mhm.
love that, and that's what I wanted for Whispered Screams is this idea of we all do it. Anybody that loves the Twilight Zone will look through the guide and say, when are my favorites coming on? I
Yes.
got to make sure I'm here for all these.
Right.
There's a thing that, to serve man. It's a cookbook. You got to find it. So that's what I wanted, and that's what you have to do with short stories. When there's not a direct connection with this episode to this episode, you have to find something that's going to make the reader want to go on to the next one.
Right. Well, I think for me, I think that it's got to have the story that you're reading has to have enough impact to make you go, ooh, let's do another one.
Right. And especially, like you said, with an anthology collection like that, it would be very easy for a reader to read the first one and be like, okay, well, that's interesting, and whatever. I've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
So you have to make an impact, and you
Yeah.
have a very small like the 600 to 500, 5,000 word window to hit. Some of my stories have gone past 5,000 words, so I've had to split them up into part 1, part 2.
Right.
But you have a very small window of why should I even care about this character? Why? It's 1,500 words. Why should I care? Why should I care if these terrible things happen to this person? So you've got to hit those certain things.
So when you were lurking and trying to see what all was going on with Vella, did you find any Vellas you want to shout out?
Ooh, as you know, I'm a kind of obsessive Vella reader. I read a lot of them, and this was the one question watching these other the interviews that you do, that okay, how am I going to answer this question? This is the one where, okay, because I don't want to leave anybody out, because there are some amazing Vellas. So the way that I think I'm going to do this, and if that's okay with you, I'm going to mention some of my all-stars, some of my writers that are my all-stars, and then I will give you my Mount Rushmore of these are my 4 that I would like to single out. And then if anybody in the watching this video wants they're new to Vella or they're looking for something to read, come find me, hit me up, and I will give you my scroll of reads. But I will say AJ Humphreys, I would say Chad Hensley, he was a guest of yours, Tess Combs, Des Sweet, you've got Tasha Creed, you've got Liz Johnson. Those people are my all-stars, and those type of stories, anything you want. It's you want shifters, you want more of like dark story. That those people have anything you want can be found there. But those are my all-stars. For my Mount Rushmore, I would say Winter's Myths by Gage Greenwood. I would say Spidersight by the Scream Queen herself, Tirzah Hawkins. I would say The Island by Jen Sequel. And I would say Stix by Brianna Leslie. Those are my Mount Rushmore. I think it would be fantastic to see carved into a mountain Kevin Bacon, a big tarantula, then a hooded cloaked slasher with a knife, and a really spooky, twisty Appalachian tree, like that, because that's those stories. Those are my Mount Rushmore icons for me right now.
Well, all good ones. You have good taste, sir. Good taste indeed. And of course, as we do here, I will link all of those, just your Mount Rushmore, to your video description, along with any books that you have out on Kindle, along with your Vella. And the next thing I want to ask you is, here we go. Okay. Now you have somehow gotten yourself, you have a matrix connection in the back of your head, And
Uh-huh.
suddenly, you know everything there is to know about serial reading and writing platforms, and you've been handed the keys. Is there anything that you would do to Vella to change or improve it in any way?
So Bezos has gone up in outer space with his uniquely shaped rocket.
He's yes.
Yeah. And he's like, hey, here's the keys. You got to do something. I would say my biggest two things would be, and it's probably very similar to what other people have said too, going back, when you self-publish through Kindle, they give you an access to an author page. You can make an author page. So I would love to see some kind of link or like a clickable button that you could link all your stories to, that some like a searchable, if you bring up this person's writing and you like, and you click on the name and it goes directly to a page that has all of their Vellas and stories. Because so often a lot of people that have Vellas out have self-published books, and they're all in Kindle, they're all on Amazon. This would be a great opportunity for the powers to be to say, hey, if you like this, why not check this out too? It's still making them money.
Yeah.
So just this world where you can search for everything somebody's done. So that would be one. The second thing would be is I love communicating and talking with people. So I would love some kind of maybe, and some authors aren't this way, some writers aren't this way, and that's fine. But maybe like you can activate a communicate with the author button, when you publish, where they can send you a message, maybe not like a comment section, because that could get out of hand very, very quickly, but just like a message the author where it'll send you like almost like an email or something, a message where you can respond back. Because there have been times where I've read something that I've really liked or had a question about. And then what I then have to do is I have to go onto Facebook and see if I can find that person. And if I want to connect, I want to let somebody know. And then do they even see it? Who knows? So this idea of a very easy, quick way that an author could turn off and turn on if they wanted to, of contacting, messaging a writer. Hey, I saw this. Same thing with like the editing process. If you're reading something and you see a mistake, then you gotta, okay, well, should I even talk to the author about it? Should I not? I would want to know if somebody found something like that. So then you got to go, what episode was it on? Okay, it was this. And then you got to try to find that author and send them a message, and hopefully they see it. If you could have some kind of clickable link, message the author, click, hey, I love what you wrote. I love this specific line in it. It's beautiful. It's beautifully written. But hey, or on the flip side of that, hey, I found this one like spelling error. You wrote peak instead of peak.
Right.
Just something like some easy communication thing. That would be probably my two biggest things.
That would be cool. That would be cool. I'd like to see that myself, actually. Just some sort of communication portal.
Right.
Yeah, that is attached, obviously, to the writer's profile.
Right. Exactly. And, something all kind of like a all one-stop shop of everything together.
And I have a feeling they're going to give us that.
I think so.
And I just don't know what it's going to look like, though, because I can't remember which guest of mine it was, but they had a good point when I was saying, because I was all for, having like a dedicated app. Let's have us a dedicated Vella app.
Sure.
But one of the people I interviewed were like, why would you do that? Because they're putting it in Kindle. So it's in the Kindle app.
Sure.
And from their perspective, why would they want to put Vella in something separate when so many of these Vella authors also write books? Sure. That they could sell there? So that made all kinds of sense. And it doesn't make sense right now, given the complete disconnect.
Right.
That there is between Vella and anything else, right? The complete disconnect bespeaks of, we got to have something here.
Right.
But if they just turned you know how your author name is underneath your story and it looks like a live link,
Right.
but
Why
that's a
not?
psych because it goes nowhere. But
Yeah.
you know, if that link right there could simply take you to an author landing page, give you 2 columns, one of Vella, one of any books they've got out there.
Right. Right. And I get what you're saying about, a separate app, because if you try to go into Amazon or Kindle, and you try to find somebody's Vella, it can be incredibly difficult to do that.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
good luck with that. You
yeah,
better subscribe to it somewhere else, like in your browser.
right, right.
You gotta go subscribe to it in there. You gotta follow it in there.
Right. And it's take somebody like Liz Johnson, for example, who's got a Vella out there. Well, if you go into Amazon and you type Liz Johnson
I'll
and
never find
search books, no, there are other authors, Liz Johnson, that have hundreds of books out. I don't even know which one it is. So
no
there needs to be some kind of connected
something.
world here to make it easier. If they want it to be successful and they want to draw in readers, they have to make it as easy as possible.
But from a software standpoint, I gotta say that the most logical thing for them to do is to light up that author name and
Absolutely.
put it to a profile landing page,
Right.
and make that happen. That's a no-brainer, and boy, that better happen actually, because
Yeah.
right now we have to sacrifice one of only 7 tags that we get to describe the story. We got to sacrifice that to our name.
Right. And that's insane.
Yeah, and if you only have one Vella out there, you're really sacrificing that tag because there's just one,
Yeah.
and it won't even show up. But
Yeah,
so
exactly. Whatever.
yeah,
I'm number 1 in the Zack Lester category. Yay.
I'm number 1.
Number 1.
Kind of like being homeschooled and going to the prom with your mom or dad.
I graduated top of my class. How many people did you have? 3 students. My 2 brothers were with me. It's like, okay, good job. Right. I did it.
Goals,
Hey,
bud, goals.
but you know what they say? What do they call the valedictorian of a doctoral program? Doctor. What do they call the person that was the last person to graduate from doctoral program? Doctor. So hey, first, last, well, I'll take it. I will wear that shirt and pretend like, and if anybody asks me how many people were there, look at the time, I gotta go.
What really puts the fear of God in you is the whole, I've heard that, but I haven't heard it quite that way. I've heard it, what do they call a doctor who graduated with 4.0 and valedictorian of his class and all the honors there are? Doctor. What do they call the guy who graduated with a D-, never wrote anything in his life?
Doctor.
Can't find his ass with both hands in a mirror.
What do you call somebody that didn't even graduate from a college that they've given an honorary degree to? Doctor. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. So we don't need to go into the details. This is
Dr. Lawless. I'm putting it out there right now.
I don't want to be Dr. Lawless. I don't, unless it's an evil doctor.
Ooh, yeah, like a cat,
Yes. Have a hairless cat and a weird accent, possibly a monocle, and a white streak. I got to have a more pronounced white streak.
So you've heard it here. Episode 36 of Whispered Screams. We'll see what happens.
Uh-huh. All right. Okay. I'm scared now. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Zack, and I have really enjoyed having you on the show. And I know everybody's going to dig this interview because you're a personable guy. You're well liked out there in the Vella community, and you're writing something that I think has a really big place in Vella. It's almost like this would be like an optimum thing to have with Vella.
Right. And
these are bathroom stories,
They are. Now, I'm not saying that a lot of those stories were written while I was in the bathroom.
No. No, of course not. Of course not.
We'll save that for after hour chat. but you're right. Like you're talking like I'm on lunch break. You know, maybe I have a 30-minute lunch break. I want to go sit in the car when it's, you know, just kind of zone out.
Just chill.
I'm waiting to pick my kid up from school.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the car in the lane waiting for them to let the kids out. I've got 15 minutes. Like I get my story fix,
Right.
and then I can go on and there's something to be said about just having that little story.
Yeah.
Where that you can
And
always
having it complete unto itself.
Right.
You know, that's something special. That's what I'm talking about there. That's having little short you know, small stories complete unto themselves, literally the short story mechanism, but
right.
you know, it's underutilized these days.
And the idea, I know this is a conversation you've had before with other people of how many people in your immediate circle are actual readers. You know, how many people out there every single day of your life are readers? I don't have time. I ain't got time for that. What are you talking about? Reading?
Yeah.
Whatever, man.
Oh Lord, that's one of them reading books. Huh?
Reading books. I can't be doing that. I'm burning the paper.
I'm busy.
But if you're talking to a friend or something and you're or a family member, you're at Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, and you're like, hey, you should check this story out. And you can call a specific story, just like I do with the Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, and Black Mirror and things like. Oh, did you see this episode of Black Mirror? You got to check it out. Did you see this episode?
Yeah.
This
Same.
Yeah. So somebody goes to you and says, hey, you got to check this out. It's a short story, doesn't take very long. And somebody says, all right, fine, I'll give it a chance. And maybe it's only a 600-word story. Maybe it's an 800-word story that they can just bite into real quick. Oh, well, that's cool. And maybe that opens the door for okay, yeah, this might be something interesting I might be doing. So you kind of like build like that. And especially, I was talking with an author out there in the Bell world, and she said she was reading my Whispered Screams, and it clicked to her. Man, I've got this 16-year-old son who hates reading, but he loves horror and he loves spooky stories, but he is not going to sit down and read a full-length book. It's not going to happen. So she actually shared him. She went to pick him up from work, and he got into his car, and she was like, yeah, that's like, you read this, or it made me laugh. She said, if you don't read this, I'm going to make you read it and write the story word for word yourself. Like, oh, Mom, are you serious? Yeah, I'm going to make you do that. So he read it, and he really liked it. And she was like, she messaged me, and she's like, hey, you will not believe this. And he had these ideas, and they even talked. A mom and a 16-year-old son talked after he got off his job, talked about, well, what do you think about that? What do you think that character was thinking? It was, at first it was kind of weird, and then it was like, oh, this is terrible. And then it was like, holy crap. It's like, like, are you kidding me? I get chills. I get goosebumps.
Oh man, you're giving them to me.
Yeah, because I was
that kid.
Yeah, I was that kid. A 16-year-old kid of reading kind of boring thing. So like I love that idea of writing a story. I know horror and that science fiction, things like that, it's not everybody's cup of tea. I totally get that, and that's fine. Everything has its place.
But it's a hell of a lot of people's cup of tea.
It is. It is. And it's probably laced with something that will kill you, or at least make you hallucinate somewhere. Or you drink the tea and it spills on the computer, and you wake up and you realize you're in a simulation. So it's fun. You can have fun with it. But it's been really a really neat experience.
Well, and I think we can count on a lot more from you in Vella land.
Yeah, I at this point, there are certain people out there that I think if I said, well, I'm using this interview to announce my retirement from Vella, there are some people out there that would probably hunt me down and say,
no, you're not.
No, you're not. No, we've got another episode to write. What are you doing?
Yes,
So,
exactly.
but
Exactly.
but at the end of the day, I think I needed something like that. To just not let it float away in the breeze of, okay, I'm going to just disappear off. I needed people holding me accountable to say, hey, you need to keep doing this. You need to keep doing this. And it drives you and says, okay, well, even if they don't like what I write, they still say, you need to keep writing. So all right. Well, and then it becomes not letting other people down, not disappointing other people. And I'm all about that.
And
I
it's a
could
little harder, isn't it?
Right, right. When people are suddenly like, you need to do this, like, oh, okay, okay, I'll find the time to make that happen. So
Well, I'm so glad you found the time to make this interview happen.
absolutely.
And thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And I wish you absolutely every sincere success out here on Vella.
Thank you.
And, I'll be out here. And definitely we'll be talking to you again, sir, because I just have a feeling we'll be talking to you again.
And and the same thing goes to you. You you do not realize the impact that you're having on the community and how the spotlight you put on others is putting a spotlight on yourself, and you have no idea the impact that you're making in the world. And I would say this, even if you I wasn't in this chair right now and you were interviewing me, you're making an impact, and nothing but success is going to come your way. And I'm excited to watch it happen for you. I really am. I cannot wait. If you ever are slumming it and you're like, I need somebody that can ramble for a couple hours to interview, hey, we talked about some ideas before. I'm up for it. I'm up for it.
We're going to talk. We will talk to you again for sure, because I think you are very much establishing yourself as a pillar of the Vella community, and I look forward to interacting with you as such. And for now, we're going to say bye.
Peace.
Peace out, everybody.